Ahoy there, me hearties! This be Captain Silver Hook, and you're listening to the Two Old Pirates podcast. Set sail for an open sea of stories, tales, and some really crazy stuff. I expect you to like and subscribe, lest you be walking the plank. Ha ha ha!
Hi, it's Eric from the Jewel Pirates. Welcome to episode 69. We'll call this The Murder That Changed My Hometown Forever. This is a 100% true story, and it's going to be longer than most of the other stories. It's a sad tale of a young person in my hometown many years ago having his life taken and how it changed Rockport forever. So, we have to go back to 1986. I was a freshman in high school. The top movies of the year were things like Top Gun, Karate Kid 2, Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, Aliens, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Some of the big songs were like for the summer when this happened in 86. You had Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. Something About You by Level 42, and a great song called Sweet Freedom by Michael McDonald, the greatest singer of all time and my favorite. But 1986 Rockport was a lot different than 2023 Rockport. I could go into a whole argument over how much my hometown has changed and what I dislike now. But that's for another episode. On this episode, we're going to talk about 1986 Rockport, the innocence, the fun times, and a small little bitty fishing and shrimping town on the Texas Gulf Coast. Rockport at that time had about 3,500 people. We did not have McDonald's. We did not have the Burger King yet, which has been gone for a while. We had a couple small chicken places. We had, of course, a Whataburger and a Sonic and a Dairy Queen. Walmart had only been open 3 years at that point, if you think about it. That's kind of crazy to think because everybody just knows of Walmarts everywhere, but we were lucky enough to have gotten a Walmart in about 82 or 83. It had only been around about 3 years, I believe. And the new H-E-B, which has been gone for a long time, had only been around for 2 years. So the H-E-B that had been around there from the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, they rebuilt a new one in 84. And then that one's been gone for a while now, and the building's not even there. And then there's a new H-E-B that everybody that has now moved to Rockport thinks that's the H-E-B, but it's actually like the third one. So that summer, we had a small movie theater in Rockport. We were lucky enough to have that. It was called Cinema 35. And if anybody's listening to this or watching this, and you remember the old Cinema 35, it played one movie a week, from Friday to the next Thursday, and then that next Friday you'd get your new movie. Now sometimes if it was like a big time thing like Star Wars or Jaws or something like that, or when E.T. came out or something like that, it might play for 2 to 3 weeks, and that's all that you'd get. But hey, for a small town, not a whole lot to do. Remember, this is pre-internet, pre-cell phone, pre-streaming, pre-cable, and sometimes 1985, 86, a lot of people had cable, but there were still some that didn't even have cable. So, yeah, it was a hot summer, as it always is in South Texas. My next door neighbor, where I lived at the Mexican Park, his nickname was Nino. That's what I've always called him. And we've been best friends for about 5 years. And Cinema 35 was going to start doing a new thing. It was going to start having midnight showings on Saturday night. So they were going to have like older movies, and they were going to play them. And I thought this would be cool. First off, it's a Saturday night, and there wasn't a whole lot to do in a small town. So I found out that they'd be having this movie, and I asked Nino, I said, hey, do you want to go? And we had nothing to do. We didn't have a whole lot of money. I think it was like $1 or $2 to get in. That was it. I mean, it was really cheap, and it's a Saturday night showing. And they were going to have the showing of a movie called The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, the only reason I'd ever heard anything about this is because my sister told me that there was this crazy movie that they played every single night out in Hollywood, and it dealt with a whole bunch of different things, and it had a good soundtrack, and a lot of people liked it. I didn't really know anything about it. There was no internet back then. I couldn't look it up or anything. I just remember my sister having said something about it, and I was like, well, Nino, you want to go? And he's like, yeah, what else are we going to do? So we show up and we get in line outside of the theater, and we're waiting to go in to buy our tickets. My dad had to drive us up there because we were both like 14 or 15. And sure enough, there's all these people showing up, and they're dressed kind of peculiarly. Let's put it that way. For a small South Texas town, to have some of the people dressed the way they were, I had never seen anything like that. You might have seen it on TV every now and then, but it was pretty rare in the conservative 80s to see things like this. But we weren't judging, and once again, we did not know what this movie was about. So yeah, if you've ever seen Rocky Horror Picture Show, musical or the movie, you know where I'm coming from about the dress and stuff. So we get in, and we're going to go ahead and go watch the movie at midnight. Now let's cut away and go back to what was going to happen that night. Okay, Rockport is known for having a really nice beach. Not because there's a lot of waves or anything. There's barely any kind of a current that comes in. But it was very, very family oriented, and it didn't. You literally had to walk out like a half mile to get your ankles wet. That's how shallow it was and stuff. So it was very, very family friendly. A lot of people like to go there. Every 4th of July, it was packed because everybody would go down there and barbecue, and everybody knew everybody. What happens now, totally different. Don't want to go into that. But back then, it was a safe, fun place to be. At the very, very end of the beach, you had what was known as a saltwater pool. And that was an area that was surrounded by like a concrete rim, and you could jump in, and it was much deeper there, and you could swim across, and get up, and there was like little ladders and stuff, and it was just a fun place to be. The beach, like I said, you had to walk out pretty far to go and get up to the waist or want to swim or anything. Well, people at night would go to the beach because there was no guards, there was open 24 hours. Never closed. There was no crossing things. There was no, you can't come in, or no rules. So the police did, of course, just because it was a small town, they had nothing to do. They would patrol it every now and then. But you knew that on a weekend there was going to be people down there parked near the band shell, which was famous, drinking, smoking weed, listening to rock music, or parking further down by the saltwater pool because it was really, really dark down by there, if you remember, if you're old enough. And, couples would, let's say, get to know each other by the music playing on the radio softly. I'm sure there was babies made out there. All right. But like I said, it was just a place where people could go ahead and party, get together, talk, skateboard, do whatever they want. And the cops really never kicked anybody out unless there was something bad going on. Like, you literally saw underage people drinking. But remember, back then, the drinking age was still 18. Yeah, think about that. So you could be, 18, 19 down there just guzzling, beer. And they might sit there and say, hey, put the beer up. It's in a public place. But, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, they're not going to run you off because it was open 24 hours. Let's go back to the movie. We get in. We sit down, this movie starts, and it starts to get a little weird. And then what happens is you start to see people playing, singing, getting up and dancing, throwing popcorn, throwing ice in the air during certain scenes. And me and Nina are like, what the hell are we watching? What the hell is this? Because they're making a mess, they're singing along to songs that we've never heard before, people are dressed up in drag, and it was very, very peculiar for two young guys that had never seen anything like this before. So we're continuing the movie and stuff out on the beach. Like I said, people are partying, having a good time, hanging out with each other. And so the beach was a fun place to be. Anybody who could get a ride that could go down there, you could listen to music being played on somebody's big sound system. So we're in the movie, and all these shenanigans are going on. We're watching the movie and we're watching the people, and finally, I had told my dad to come pick us up around 1:30 or 2, and we should be done. Well, on that night, out of all the nights, uh, there was a group of young men that went down there together. They were friends. I'm not sure if they were drinking or if they were just hanging out, but they were there. And evidently there's another man there. Now, the one of the young men, they were all, as far as I know, after all these years, they were all in high school. One of them, the particular person I'm going to talk about, was a year or two older than me, right? So I didn't really know him. He was pretty popular in high school, but we never really talked or anything. But everybody knew everybody. And there was another man that ended up there that night, and I guess they didn't get along, or they had a beef or something. But my dad finally showed up and picked us up, and we get in the back of his car. I remember it was an ugly, dark, burnt orange car, Catalina or something like that. I remember getting in the car, driving home. I'm talking to Nino in the back about all the weirdness that we just experienced. That it was definitely a different type of movie for us. We'd never seen anything like that, and the people seemed to have a blast, but we were kind of intimidated by the people. As we're saying that, you kind of go past on Highway 35 from the movies to go back to our houses. You had to pass by off to your left, you could see the beach. The beach is there. And I happened to see a lot of lights going in that direction. And I remember telling Nino, man, I wonder what's going on over there. Look, there's like a ton of cops going out to the beach. I bet you somebody got in trouble or something. We probably laughed about it, not thinking anything. We make it home. And then I'm not sure if it was the next day or Monday going, but there was a couple days maybe. But word got around that what had happened on that evening is this very popular and well-liked young man and this other person who was older than him, I believe he's in his 20s, had got into an argument or a disagreement. And I guess there was supposed to be a fight, or there was going to be a fight, or there was something that was going to take place. And the older man was packing. He had a gun. And I believe that the teenagers there did not know that. And what transpired is that a gun was taken out and a shot was fired, and it hit the teenager, and he passed away from the wounds. It was a shock to everybody. Those that were closer to him than myself and the other, my friends and stuff, they were crushed. It's one of those things, young people aren't supposed to go that fast or that quick, but it happened. And we all felt it. And like I said, those that were closer felt it much, much deeper than those that weren't as close, but it was still a young person that you had seen in the halls, and just didn't feel right. Soon after that, the city of Rockport got together, and they decided that the beach needed to now be closed. And I believe they first started off with maybe 11 p.m. and then they moved it to midnight. But irregardless, the curfew now was at midnight. And I remember years after that, as I grew and I got my own driver's license and stuff, if we were out, if we were running over to Whataburger to get something from the house, if you passed by, it was blocked off basically, or there were cops on the beach just turning around in the end around at the end of the beach and coming back through and just making sure nobody was on the beach. Nobody was parked. Nobody was driving on the beach. And there was a lot of people in Rockport that didn't agree with it. They were like, yes, this is a horrible event that happened, but it's always been open. I mean, for decades, the beach was always open 24 hours. You could go park. You could do whatever. I mean, literally, as long as, It wasn't like something really horrible going on. The beach was open for business. I mean, anybody could go out to the beach and just sit in their car. They could go read a book. They could take a nap. They could make a baby. They could drink beer. After that young man was shot and killed, the powers that be said, no more. No more. Also, up to that point, we had never had to pay to be on the beach. The beach was free. You just drove to the beach. It was not a destination like how it is now, where they're trying to attract people, saying one of the 10 most beautiful beaches in the nation, stuff like that. Wasn't that way. It was just a small town beach. It didn't even. There's not even a current. There's no waves. There's nothing. It's just still water. And it's not that we didn't like it, but it was kind of ours. It was the one thing that we enjoyed in this small town and stuff. And then it was taken away. And I understand people that jump to conclusions and they're like, "Hey, this is to ensure it'll never happen again." I understand that. But then they moved in and they put in like a guard station, and then they started charging. Now there's an annual fee or a daily fee, and then now you can't walk dogs on the beach, like, and you can't have glass bottles. I mean, there's all this stuff that they've now changed. But I think that, you know, if you sit there and say, was it all because of that horrible night? I'm going to say yes, because none of those things were instituted until after this tragedy happened. After this tragedy happened, and they took that huge leap to say, we're going to shut down the beach at night now, and they kind of got away with it. They, you know, future city councils and mayors were much easier to go ahead and adopt new things, to go ahead and change things. And that's another whole discussion for another video. But for this one, that murder that night changed Rockport even to today. There are people that are on those beaches, on that beach now, on beautiful days, that have no idea that young man was murdered out there near the band shell. They have no idea. They have no idea about the curfew. They just think this is Little Rockport, you know, a tourist destination. And yeah, we pay our $40 for an annual fee, but we're only down here on the weekends for our summer home and stuff. They have no idea about the pavilions down there, why you have to pay, why there's a curfew, why you can't walk your dog. All these things started being, it was like a snowball effect. It didn't all happen all at one time, but it did all happen after the fact. And if you think that, you know, Rockport's been there since the 1880s or 1890s, and the beach has always been there, and, you know, birthday parties were held out there and all this stuff, and there's still people, they don't mind paying the $40. I can honestly tell you, I swear to my parents, I have never paid an annual fee to get on that beach after they started charging. I won't do it. As a person whose family moved there in the early 70s, my dad was a shrimper there, even though he was the Forrest Gump of shrimping, as in he had no freaking clue what he was doing. Maybe you could make a shrimp cocktail out of that. Okay, yeah. We were from Massachusetts. So the thing is, I remember old Rockport. I remember what it used to be and stuff. So when those people are down there vacationing and stuff, and they don't know that beach was there for all those years, and nobody ever had to be escorted off unless they did something illegal, and people were able to park and drink a beer and talk with their friends. Amazing times down there. All right, and what happened is it's all taken away, and the tragedy of all this is that a young man lost his life, and then the after effects is how they changed the beach and Rockport for everyone else afterwards. But that's a true story. I did not want to mention any names. If you know who the person was, then you know. I'm going to give respect to the family and to his memory, that we don't have to talk about things like that. But we're all getting older, and it's still kind of unreal to me, although we weren't friends, that this young, vibrant, young, athletic guy that seemed like everybody loved could be gone that quick. And I know that those that might be watching this that were closer to him probably feel that deeper than I do. You know, this young man would be in his mid-50s now, and he never got to experience that. And it's a sad thing. But that's the night that my hometown changed forever for a senseless murder. between two people. And a young man lost his life over a disagreement or a fight or whatever it was that night, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that he lost his life, and that's sad. And then that changed the trajectory of my hometown to this day. So I hope that you enjoy this true story from Eric. If you like this, please share. If you know who I'm talking about and what night I'm talking about, please comment, share, and have others that were in Rockport around that time watch and leave their thoughts and maybe their memories. And I hope that you'll subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Please subscribe. I want to go ahead and get us to 1,000 subscribers someday. But that will be it for podcast 69 and the murder that changed my hometown forever. Until the next time, peace. I'm Eric from the Two Old Pirates.